Greetings, everyone, and thank you for choosing to spend an hour with us at MCC for one in a series of webinars. Today's called Journey of a Kit, How Relief Supplies Travel Across the Globe. My name is Rick Kober-Bauman, and I am literally in my basement today, just outside the little hamlet of Shakespeare in southwestern Ontario, Canada. I serve as the Executive Director of Mennonite Central Committee Canada, and we are just thrilled to have you join us. Thank you for taking this time. When disaster strikes, our supporters like you, are there to help supply much needed emergency things like relief kits or comforters or that much loved canned meat from the mobile meat canner. So today we want to share with you how the items you generously donate are sent across the globe and really do touch the lives of people in need. So today we have three very special guests. They include Euphrasia Njobu, who is the Planning and Monitoring and Evaluation Coordinator for MCC in Zambia. Welcome, Euphrasia. And Amanda Tolstra, also from Zambia. She is, along with her partner, her husband, the rep for MCC there in Zambia. Welcome, Amanda. And John Leibold, who is the coordinator of material resources in MCC Ontario. And I happen to know that John is the third generation in his family that's been directly involved in gathering, collecting, packing, and shipping material resources for MCC. So welcome to you, John, Amanda, and Euphrasia. We have a fairly standard way that we do our webinars. We give each of our presenters an opportunity to speak to you, and there'll be a little bit of back and forth perhaps that I might initiate as they speak, but for the most part we'll keep questions until the end. We look forward to having a good block of questions. You can text those using the remind me, the Q&A function, I believe, is the best way to do that. And we're going to try and answer just as many as we can. We look forward to lots of dialogue and conversation here, and hope that you'll feel free to become part of that as well as just listening and watching. So I am going to ask our guests to present actually in the opposite order that I introduced them. So we are going to ask John to begin, and just a little clarity there. Yes, it is the Q&A function, not the chat, but the Q&A function of Zoom for you to get your questions. Enter them anytime, please, and you can focus them on an individual. You might say, Euphrasia, please, I want to know about this comment that you made, or it might be more general, and then you can leave it up to me to help decide who gets to answer. Sometimes all three of them may want to comment. So, John, we're looking forward to hearing from you. Welcome.
Thanks. Thank you, Rick, for the introduction. I'm just going to share my screen here. All right. So the timing of this webinar is perfect as we just came off of our Buckets of Thanks campaign last weekend. Yeah, and many of you actually just dropped off donations for Buckets of Thanks. So thank you so much for that. I'm hoping that today I will be able to answer the question of what comes next after you have dropped off your donations to us. So just a second here, I'm going to get the slideshow going.
John, while you're pulling that up, let me just answer one first question. Somebody said, is it okay if you use contents from the webinar today in your church, in a worship gathering? Please, absolutely, yes. Want to be clear about that right from the top here. Back to you, John.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I apologize. I was just having some issues of this getting going, but here we are. So today I'm going to go over and give you kind of a behind the scenes look at what happened to those donations that you dropped off after Buckets of Thanks. One thing I should mention is I'm going to be going over how we do processes in Ontario to get to the final point before they leave. Every material resources warehouse does things a little bit differently, so I would encourage you to get in contact with your local MR center if you have specific questions on their processes leading up to when the items are shipped. But they're all pretty similar to get to the same end. So before I jump into the warehouse portion of it and what happens in the warehouse after your supplies come, I want to start at the very beginning. If any of you were planning to do an event or you've done an event, chances are you've ended up on our webpage or received a kit card from one of the MR centers. I wanted to address some questions that I get when people first arrive at our webpage or first receive a kit card. And those are, why are there so many rules? How do they decide what's needed? And what if I can't find these items? They're all very common questions. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail with them, but hopefully I can answer them for you now. So the first one, why so many rules? If you look at the lists of the things that we're trying to collect, they are very specific, and that is by design. We want every kit that's shipped, whether it's from Canada or the US, to be as similar as possible. We don't want to cause any conflict with the recipients on the other end because of quantity or quality differences between kits. How do we decide what's needed or what we ship? That's one of the most common questions I get. So everything that we ship is based off of requests from our in-country partners. They are living and working in the areas that we're shipping to. They know the needs, they know what's readily available, and they can best decide what's needed. They send us the request, and then we try and fill that request. And the last question, the one I get most often when I hand somebody a kit card is, what if I can't find these specific items? I can assure you everything on these lists are items that are readily available in Canada and the US. But if you are ever concerned about finding an item, just be in contact with your local MR coordinator. We all have sources where we find these items and would be more than happy to share those sources with you and pass any savings along that we may have to get these items. Okay, so your group collected some of those items for buckets of thanks, and you might be wondering, what now? What do I put the supplies in? Where do I find buckets? Does the stuff have to be packed before I drop it off at an MRC? Those are all very good questions, and the answer is pretty much yes to all of them. What do I put the supplies in? Really, we are happy to accept your donations in whatever you put them in, however you pack them. In Ontario, all of our thrift stores are designated donation drop-offs. So you can bring your items to any one of those stores and they're happy to receive them, and then they'll make sure that they get to us. All MRCs have different drop-off locations, so it's always a good idea to check the website to see where the best place is to drop them off. If your group would like buckets, we're more than happy to provide you with the buckets for your packing event. You'll see in this one picture, there are pallets and pallets of buckets that are waiting to be filled, and we're happy to supply you with those that you can put the items in there for the relief kits. Or the other picture, you see a reusable grocery bag. Our thrift stores love when MR gets donations of items in these bags. After your items are packed in the pails, these bags would then go to our thrift store that they can pass on to any customers that forget to bring bags when shopping in our stores. So the answer is the stuff doesn't have to be packed any specific way. We're very happy to receive it however you're able to bring it to us. So you've collected the items, you looked up your drop-off area. Now it's time to bring the items into us. As I mentioned, there's many different drop-off areas. So let's say you dropped it off at one of our thrift stores. They will make sure that the items then make it to our MR center and are put in a bin like the one shown here in the presentation. You can see the bins get really, really full. And that is great. So every day in Ontario, we start our volunteer day by emptying out this bin and bringing it over into our processing area to be sorted. This donation here was one of comforters and hygiene kits, and it was actually one group that donated all of those items. If you are going to drop off a lot of items all at once, it is a really good idea to get a hold of your local MR center and just let them know that it is coming, that they can be ready to help you unload and other things. So you drop the items, they've been moved over into the processing area. Now it's time for us to dig into the kits. Processing means many different things, from folding, stacking, and baling comforters. You can see our baler is loaded there in that picture, to checking, packing, and palleting items. So you can see that relief kit has now been opened up and laid out on the table with all the supplies laid out nicely. Our volunteers would look at that. They would probably tape the shampoo bottle shut and then put it in a Ziploc bag and then pack the items. What if? So sometimes and often we receive kits that look something kind of like this. So we'll open the bag and you'll see there's some school supplies, there's some bath products, some baby wipes, some other things in there, a small bottle of shampoo. And so our volunteers would lay this out on the table. The first thing they would do is take out the school supplies or any items that can be used in some of our other kits, and they would put those items in the proper location. So the school kit items here would go with other school kits that are ready to be packed. Then they would take out the products that aren't used in any of our kits. So the bath supplies, the baby wipes, and all of those items. You can see they're really good items yet. They're just not items that we would ship internationally. So they would be put in a box that is made available to our local partners, such as our local men's and women's shelters and food banks. They love receiving some of these items that we're unable to ship. So after all of the items are out of the kit that don't go along with it, our volunteers would then check the quantity of all of the items in the kit. You can see this one's missing a toothbrush, so they would add a toothbrush in. The bottle of shampoo is a little bit small, so they would add in another bottle of shampoo and get it to the right size. And then they would remove any of the unnecessary packaging. Things like toothbrushes do need to stay in their packages, but things like the combs there, and if there's any tags on the towels, they would remove that packaging and recycle it here. We have a good source for recycling here, and so we'll do that here, not knowing exactly what kind of recycling is going to be available in the area that we're shipping to, and we don't want to add extra garbage and that sort of thing on the other end. Okay, so they've been checked. Now it's time for us to pack them and get them ready for shipping. So you'll see this picture here. We have some volunteers in, and they are packing items that have been donated and checked into the various buckets. So once they're in the bucket, it may look something kind of like this. It depends on the towels and other things, how much space you're going to have. But once everything's in the bucket, then we hammer on the lids. We use a sealed lid that requires it to be hammered on the first time. This is that we know that the relief kit is going to make it to its destination without opening up and items falling out and that sort of thing. After the lid is on, we put on the weight sticker. In Ontario, when we see the weight sticker on the bucket, we know that bucket is ready to go. And so when the sticker is on it, we know that it's ready to be put onto its pallet for shipping. If you look at the picture here, you'll see how we pallet them and position them in our warehouse. You'll see that half of the buckets on the pallet are right side up and the other half are upside down. That saves a lot of space and it makes it possible for us to fit 70 pallets or 70 buckets on each pallet. And that'll come into play a little bit later on. One question I get is, does that mean that relief kits are sent, some of them upside down? The answer is yes. Another reason why we have really specific processes to prepare the items before they leave, that nothing spills out and no items are damaged. Once the items are on the pallet and we have enough items to meet the request, we stage the items in our warehouse. This picture was actually taken at our previous warehouse at 50 Kent. and you will see that when we were ready for a shipment, our warehouse was full, full to the brim. But all of these items are lined up in the way that we are going to load them into the container, and in a way that we can see all the serial numbers and double check everything before it gets loaded onto a container. Then the exciting part, packing of the container. So the day of a shipment, we have a truck pull up to our building, or a 40-foot high cube container. And now this one has stuff in it. This was actually one pulling away in this photo, but an empty container would pull up to our loading dock. This just gives you a good idea of what our loading dock at 50 Kent looked like. It pulls up and hooks onto our building. Then we start packing the container immediately. We have 2 hours to load the container. And so a volunteer would take the pallets that were staged and start bringing them into the receiving area for us. Once they're in the receiving area, we take them mostly by hand and load them into the container. If you see in this picture here, we were able to drive in some of the relief kits, but there was still space above. And so we would then put relief kits and other things on top of those pallets. The reason why we do that is we're paying for every inch of that container. So we want to make sure that every inch of that container is full. And containers really are filled to the brim when they go. At the halfway point of loading a container, we stop, we call all staff and volunteers that are available, and we do a prayer of sending for the items. We pray for the items, we pray for those that will be receiving the items, and we pray and thank God for those who donated the items. Without all of your donations, we wouldn't be able to fill the container the way we do. After the prayer, we continue packing the container until it's full right to the very back. In this picture here, you can see we left some items down at the bottom. That is for customs, that they could do spot checks of everything that is in the container and just make sure that everything that we've listed is correct. After the container is full, we have the truck pull away from the building, and then we put the seal on the back of the truck. This seal shows customs that the container, after leaving our site, hadn't been tampered with at all. So they just make sure that the seal is on and that it's good. So this is a picture of the container closed and pulling away from our building. This is often a very, very emotional time for us when we stop and reflect on all of the work and all of the love that went into all of the items that are in that container. We think of those that are going to be receiving it, and it's just a really emotional and really cool time. If you ever get a chance to help load a container at your local MRC, I highly recommend it. It's a very busy but very cool process. So after the container has left our warehouse, in Ontario, we track it on marine traffic. So when it leaves here by truck, it typically goes on a train, then to port, and then from port to its destination. During this time, we ask our volunteers and staff to continue praying for the items and to continue praying for the people that will be receiving them. So I hope that gave you a bit of a look into what happens up until when they leave our warehouse. I look forward to answering any of your questions here at the end of the presentation.
Thank you, John. Wow, what attention to detail. The details of sealing the lid and yeah, making sure the seal is also on the back of the truck. I love the prayer gathering. I remember some of those times in Ontario. I also love your comments about, well, if we get something that we can't ship, that's not part of the inventory that we've agreed on with our partners, there are people in our local communities that are happy to use those. So, there is one question that's very specifically for you, John. So I am going to give that one to you now. Is what you're saying quite consistent for the other MCCs, or is what you described a really unique to Ontario process?
It's fairly consistent for the 3 warehouses that ship internationally. For the other warehouses, Their processes are very similar in packing and collecting, but instead of them loading into a container and putting a seal on, the items would go to the warehouse that does the international shipping for them. So very similar. The final product or the packed product up until that point might be a little bit different, but the final product is always the same.
Thank you, Jonathan. Now, somebody had asked earlier about the cost. You saw John's photos of the size of a container. He doesn't waste very many cubic inches or centimeters in there. They're packed full, and that's because it costs, for instance, to Ukraine, about $7,800 Canadian to ship a container with, the examples of the supplies that John was just explaining. Thank you, John. Much appreciated. And I know Amanda is eager to come up next. So I also remind those of you participating, please keep sending us your questions. I see some more coming in, and we'll take a pause for those in a little while. Welcome, Amanda.
All right, thank you. I'm just gonna try to share my screen here. All right, Rick, maybe you can give me a thumbs up if the screen is sharing. Thumbs up, okay. So thank you, Rick, and thank you, John, for sharing. I learned so much about the process, so thank you. I'm here to share a little bit about what happens after that long ocean journey with the container. So I'm gonna share about 2 distributions that I've been a part of relief supplies in Malawi. I know Rick introduced already, but just to say that my name is Amanda, and my husband Daniel and we are the MCC reps for Zambia and Malawi. Today I'm speaking to you from northern British Columbia, a town called Terrace, but we are usually based in Lusaka, which is the capital of Zambia. So the first distribution I wanted to share with you about is one that happened in April of 2019, and this was in response to Cyclone Idai. So Cyclone Idai came through in March of 2019 on the east coast of Southern Africa. It hit Mozambique and caused a lot of damage there, and then it went inland and caused a lot of flooding, heavy rains and flooding in Zimbabwe and southern Malawi. And so MCC did a response in southern Malawi with our partner, the Brethren in Christ Church. And so this photo, I loved all the women's skirts, so which is why I took the photo. But and I also captured this gentleman speaking here, and he is the bishop of the Brethren in Christ Church in Malawi. So he is welcoming the women to the distribution. So our response to the cyclone, we actually did a 9-month response. So people received food every month for 9 months, and there was 400 families that were part of that response. We estimated 5 to 7 families or people per family, so somewhere between 2,500 and 300 families received relief, and that relief included maize, it included beans, it included cooking oil, plastic sheets for people who had lost their homes. Also, the first distribution included relief kits and canned meat that came from Material Resources. So this is a gentleman that I met named Timothy, and I thought it was so creative how he had strapped his relief kit to his bicycle. So John, after seeing your presentation, I just think it's really neat to see the relief kits in Ontario and then the relief kit on the back of someone's bike here in Malawi. This is one of our MCC staff members in the blue and white shirt. He traveled with me to Malawi, and he's helping to unload the truck of supplies here. And one of my very favorite parts of being able to be a part of these distributions is the chance to meet people. I enjoy taking pictures, so to take pictures of people, to interview them and hear about their stories. So this is a woman that I met named Dina Lisi. Dina Lisi is in her 70s, and you can see she's holding here the verification card that the church was using, and she gave her thumbprint with that, the purple ink there. And she told me about her story of the cyclone, and her family had been sleeping when it started raining so heavily, and the flooding caused their house to collapse, and their fields were totally flooded. And she said that they actually spent the night holding on to a tree, waiting for the flooding to subside and help to come. So her story was pretty impactful to me. This is another woman that I met named Rose. And Rose told me that she has 5 children and she's here holding her youngest child. And she had a really similar story, that when the rains came, she lost almost everything. Their crops were destroyed. But she especially asked me to pass on a message of gratitude to the people who had sent the food assistance, which I thought was really beautiful. So then another project that we've been working on with relief supplies in Malawi is in central Malawi. So it's a region that wasn't affected by the cyclone, but it's a region that houses Malawi's largest refugee camp, which is called Zaleka Refugee Camp. And MCC's partner, the Mennonite Brethren Church, does a lot of work in that camp. So MCC was able to partner with the camp to provide relief supplies. So this is a family that I met in the camp, and you can see they have the relief kits there. They have the canned meat, the comforters. We also gave infant kits and hygiene kits and education kits as well. So this is a woman that I met in the refugee camp. Her name is Emily, and she's holding 2 comforters that her family received from MCC. And you can't tell from the photo, but Emily was 7 months pregnant with her 9th child. And she told me that her family had fled from Burundi 5 years ago, fled from conflict there, and she had been living in the refugee camp for 5 years. So many of her children were born there. And she asked me to pass along the message, God bless MCC, help them to help others and continue to remember us. And then this next picture, I really liked because I was really struck by this woman. And I don't have time now, but if you go to MCC's YouTube page, we have a whole interview with this woman. But her name is Nizigama, and she's also from Burundi. And when I met her here, they told me that she had just given birth 2 or 3 days before, and that she had given birth to her 13th child. So she's standing here with some of her children, but she also has many more. And you can see they're standing with the relief kits and the canned meat and the comforter. And what a neat thing about this picture is that MCC is doing a campaign called Share Your Table, where people can become monthly donors to support food relief. And MCC, someone in MCC, an artist or a graphic designer, was able to take that picture and then take the photograph and make it into this cool picture that you see here on the right. So I thought that was really neat as well. I wanted now, hopefully if the technology works for me, this will be okay. I wanted to show a video. Is this working okay? Oh, maybe I'll just go back one.
So just a little bit about the things in the container that came from your brothers and sisters.
Zimene ndikufuna niwauze zokuzana na katundu amene anabwera mu container.
They aren't,
Amanda,
the blankets
sorry,
are not things that they bought in the store.
Okay. Somehow my screen is looking very weird. Sorry, so guys, something happened to it. Maybe I'll stop presenting and start again. Is that working?
Amanda, I'm happily willing to take a question or two and give you a moment to not be under such immediate tension here. I know how those things feel.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
So maybe just a question that goes back to John's comment about the variety of centers in the MCCs in Canada. We ship from Winnipeg and from Pennsylvania, Ephrata, Pennsylvania, and from Ontario, where John was speaking from. And there's just been a change in location in Ontario. And then the other question was, do items shipped from Manitoba get repacked? No, that would be a destination shipping from Winnipeg, actually southern Manitoba, not Winnipeg, but Plum Coulee, and those go on through to destination. There may be sometimes when there's some bringing together of part containers that need to get consolidated. any of our resource people, John, you spoke a bit to this, maybe you want to make a comment as well.
Yeah, if we don't have quite enough items to meet a request, we will work with other warehouses to make sure that we have enough items to meet the request by the time frame that we need to meet. So yeah, we do work closely with the other warehouses.
Great. Thanks, Jonathan. Amanda, how are you doing?
Okay, can you see the video now?
I can see the image. Yep.
Okay, so hopefully this will work. Just to say about the video, I don't think what I say is especially important in the video. I just really wanted to show people the response of the community when I'm explaining that MCC didn't buy the comforters, somebody made the comforters, that we didn't buy the meat, somebody canned the meat for them. So hopefully it will work for me to show it to you now.
So just a little bit about the things in the container that came from your brothers and sisters.
zimene ndikufuna niwauze zokuzana na katundu amene anabwera mu container.
They aren't, the blankets are not things that they bought in a store.
Tuma blanket tupentu momwemo andu sana pange bamwina kugula mu mashop.
So our grandmas around the world have been sewing the blankets to send to
Kuli
you.
nkalamba zina azimaye na mene mapanga mablanketi ameneyo kuyangulugu tiene tutanisia bale mwambuya mapanga oka.
Amen. Yeah, and the meat that is in the cans that we will hand out.
Mwina mukatundu amene tuzakatuli kusegula.
We did not buy it in the store.
Zonse zimene mulandire zambiri sizinapangidwe imba kugula mu mashop.
It comes from Mennonite farmers who raised the turkeys and then donated them for
Kuli
you.
zina zake makopo mwilu nyama zina zake zimenezo zinapangidwa na Mennonite na amene amagwira ntchito mu mafamu zambiri zili alina ziweto zambiri amapanga oka kutumiza konkunoku abale mwina peze mwina kena kaki.
So I know that what we give today is so small compared to the big need in this community.
Zimene tupeleka ni zochepa kumene anthu ambiri alikufuna zambiri zimene zilipo ni zochepa kwambiri.
But I hope you can receive it as an expression of our love for you from your brothers and sisters all around the world.
Chimene mungapange kulandira kabeni yako mwachisangalalo kona jikoni chimene ifeyo anthu amene ali nacho kwa inuyo anthu wakuno kuntakataka.
Okay. Thank you very much. Zikomo.
Mulungu adaliseni zikomo kwambiri.
Okay, and then I'll just close with, this is the same community, and they really wanted to sing a song of gratitude for MCC. So this is their really beautiful song here. Sorry. Okay. So I'll just end there, and I wanted to say thank you so much for inviting me to share with you today. I feel like it is such a privilege to work for MCC and to often be on the ground to see this type of work. And I know that when I'm on the ground, people might see me or a few of our other staff, but I know that we are representing such a large supportive community behind us, and I don't take that for granted. So thank you for inviting me today.
Amanda, thank you. I loved how you shared names of most of the individual women whose stories you told, and appreciate how that, presents a dignified way of being in relationship with each other, and that meant a lot. And for telling us about the church partners that you connect with there, and really liked the song at the end. Thanks for including that. So we do want to make sure we have a good period of time to hear from Euphrasia, and we continue to welcome you to send in questions on the Q&A so that we can also have some conversation time towards the top of the hour. Euphrasia, I welcome you now to take us into the next part.
Hello, hello everyone. This is Euphrasia Njovu. I'm here to share with you the journey that Amanda shared partly. I'm based in Zambia, and we are one destination that has received these items. So when we receive these containers after a long trip, we take them to the households that are extremely in need. And the container that we had for the canned turkey, we were able to share to 3,237 households. So this was a population of about 7,176 people that were able to benefit from this gift. I want to mention that when these foodstuffs come to us, we are able to work with other partners, and especially the BIC Church here in Zambia. And that's the catchment where MCC Zambia is supporting the services.
Euphrasia, I'm not hearing you. Are we back?
You know, I think she might have just got disconnected.
Are you able to hear me?
We are again now, Euphrasia. We lost you there for about 30 seconds, but I'm noting also that your video has frozen.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes. But not consistently. I'm going to do what I... Nathan, should we try to reconnect with Euphrasia? Okay, we've lost her. We've got you back. Euphrasia, I think if
Thank you that I'm back.
Yeah, you might need to turn off your video to save some bandwidth. I hesitate to ask you to do that, but we lost you there.
Am I able to share? Okay.
Let's try that.
Am I audible enough now? My video is off.
And we can hear you fine, Euphrasia.
Thank you so much. Are you sharing the screen from the other side?
Yes.
Thank you, Amanda.
Amanda is sharing for you. Please continue.
Yeah, in the screen, you can see one a beneficiary expressing gratitude after receiving the canned meat. We were able to give 12 cans per family that the families were eating with our local staple food called insima, because here most of the food that we eat is all carbohydrate. So people would only eat porridge because of not having the other side of the relish that people are supposed to use. So having the can was something so exciting that the people appreciated so much, as you can see the man in the picture, because most families sold their small livelihood, their small livestock in exchange for mealie meal during the drought. I can have the next slide, Amanda.
Alinsara igambo unati
iwoto wakabotuwa hula mumwaga iwa 20
Are you
2018 vya mwaka wa 2019 jagalwana imasena manje ajisiji na Zambia igapati jongo ya kumusanza ali mwajogo ijagumbo ijaguti iyango isiga gumwerwe iwa 70% yagayumaga itaninga gusiga eni po hibizwa eji jaganyonganya imaumi manje abantu balobagalwanwa anzala igapati bana bajigolo agambwa guti imigwahi yagasiga ampa yabuya byojindi yomwe mugati mubuzuba ibamwe omba ijogo ja kumusanza jisigi na Zambia agabola igabunga iga MCC galo ago kigaleta lugwasho kumigwahi alimi aguzigolo kagaterega igusanina basijigolo mugatumu yigolo isiga buli lusele basijigolo ibasiga bu 7181 alimwa 81 jigolo ijambole ilugwasho olu tilo kainda ambali gapati kuli babo ibapengede bagrini munkombwe mbasi bugu munsi ajigolo ijambole bajisimyaga yagu ya 72 pere baratiguzwa jindi no bagahalwa tabana buzuba babona nzala mbuli nzala yagali mu mwaka wa 2019 ejo bapakulumba kumbunga ya MCC Zambia kulugwasho ndo yagapa
mebarudi kamandi kisimyaga ili 72 buzandega alikwa sinabwe nenzala ya muhobo uyape kasimpeka kuti tuwa ndotajikwa ibana besu twakalumba kulugwa twakwekwa kambo bali wakunka kujigolo kaba higuti bayakubaja kulia muligako bakalibia agusukira icho bayigwa kambo bali kutite bayunga bali kutite
ashonto bamagwamba inzala yagali kulu yagasugo
yakulya twakali tengete tagwe nitwakali yakulya mamyozi o tatwe ndijo mwepe twalunga buzuba komwena wabona kapamera kotwete kuti ujirebo polichi kuti babana batiyani bachikonhe kulya
mboba katola jishu pere bagali kuyandawula buyo busu ikuti bengegehe ajishu ncho bajisigale
nzala ya mu 2019 yakanizala nkhali ing'ombe bali kusambala muno chipidi kuti kwajanira kuli itupongo kusambala muno chipidi abalo baula bali kuchita kuti kayu watasambala ni chibala lanza mbwa apunda arukwire kutambula kuti kwachani kune bana bako tunku kutonze twakalimanide wali kwina nkugolo yomwe tutalika byeno wali kuhuba kwali unga kakukubyo kakomena wasamba kuti kujanika nzi kapamera kabana kuti kabali yambweno tutano kala nzala ponya bakazotwetera imagaba ya anyama makalukuni nyama ino bantu yakali mboto twakaikomanina maninga alimwe bana bakaikomanina kambwa kutedi inyama titu akalibibona ndo bali
ibatonga bagati yigwe hunaliso bukalamwe mbunyina igwe yalagwa nchembele nkumu yalego janza elyo ili huna ibinda lyelyo ili tambula ibande ungagabede imirimo mibotu irabonegera ibinda mu mijelo ihalwa imijelo yalibonye.
Thank you so much. Sorry for the poor transmission, but I want to think it brought a picture to something that we are doing and how far the gifts that the people donate out there take. So the communities are happy to receive because this gives them a difference in life on what is happening and how much impact the donations make in the lives of the people. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present this.
Frasia, thank you. And yes, it's always a little bit disheartening when technology gives us some challenges, but you and Amanda responded really well on the go there. So thank you for giving us that window into Zambian life and how it feels, how it looks, how it sounds as communities respond. I appreciated the picture of the young man with the armload of canned meat, and you said 12 cans to family, and I noticed he had 7, so there was probably someone else carrying the remainder of their family presentation. So thank you to all our panelists, and I also want to say to those of you gathered here, many of you who I know have been inside material resource centers in Canada or the US, and we want to say thank you the way you engage. And I'm sure there are other ways than material resources that many of you share God's love and compassion around the world through MCC. We invite your continued questions. We have a few minutes left. If you're on Facebook, the Facebook chat function will also get your questions to us, and we are happy to entertain those in these last minutes. Someone had earlier asked about the buckets of thanks. John, I think it was in your presentation, you talked about that. You can tell John works in Canada because we just had Thanksgiving, the Canadian Thanksgiving, a few weeks ago here, and Bucket of Thanks was especially promoted around that time, although our friends in MCC US in the East Coast participated as well. And all together, from the US East Coast and the rest of Canada, 1,500 buckets were collected through the Buckets of Thanks campaign. Thank you. And then another $6,500 or so Canadian dollars was collected, which if we would translate that into the cost of buckets, another 131 buckets available. So you've seen what those buckets look like, how they're gathered. I think, John, you even showed one photo of where the towels were put in such a way that from the top they looked like a heart. I thought that was pretty cool. So what other questions do people have here? I'm happy to also spark some comments and maybe some conversation amongst our presenters from Zambia and the MCCs here in Canada, but we certainly want to be open to questions from you as well. Here's one. Why do they pack these in buckets? These kits used to be shipped differently, but why those sealed plastic buckets? And any of you who want to have a go at this question, please do.
Yeah, I don't mind taking this one, and Amanda, you can definitely add to it, or Euphrasia as well. So yeah, we want every item that we ship has a purpose, and the bucket is actually one of the most valuable pieces that we send. I mean, it's a container. It has a sealed lid. You can put water in it. Really, that bucket can be used for so many things, even after all of the relief kit items are gone, or like the shampoo is gone, that sort of thing. The bucket still becomes a very valuable piece.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Any other comments from Amanda or Euphrasia on this one?
Euphrasia, maybe you could share. I think in Canada, we just do not use buckets nearly the way, in the same way that people in Southern Africa do. So Euphrasia, maybe you could share a bit about how people use those buckets.
Yes, a bucket is a very essential item in every household, because we do not have a well articulated water system in our communities. So people draw water from a distance. So a bucket becomes very essential, that after unpacking the gift inside, then they will use the bucket for as long as they have it. So actually, the item packed may even wear out, but the buckets remains as a serious essential item for a household. So the bucket is actually extremely appreciated.
Euphrasia, we might quote you on that, that even after the other items wear out, we still use the bucket. I hear that question a lot in Canada. And I remember, I've been around long enough to remember when we first started using buckets, and how quickly that feedback came that, along with those supplies, the bucket is really welcome. Thanks for that background. Someone else has asked, how do we decide whether shipments overseas will come from Canada or the US? I'll just make a brief comment, and others again can chime in, that our program internationally is shared between the US and Canada. So there's one overall coordinator giving leadership to our material resources. And so it's up to that person to make decisions, keeping in touch with Jonathan and others that are in warehouses to know what supplies are available when, and to match that with the requests from partners. And so it really is a shared US-Canada system feeding into a shared international system, and that the decision about whether Canada or US would be dependent on supply and demand. I see some nods. Any other comments on that question? And this is one for you, Euphrasia. What's the name of the church or group of churches you work with in Zambia?
In Zambia, we are working with Brethren in Christ Church, which is based in Choma, and we know they are found in every other community that we support. So it's easy for us to work with them to the grassroots because the structure stands from the main town, from the city to the community itself. So at no point that we are stuck with who to work with because they're found everywhere else that we are going to, where we wish to give the service.
And a follow-up for you, Euphrasia, or maybe Amanda. What's the importance of working with the church in these local distributions? Why is that a priority for MCC? Euphrasia, do you have a comment on that?
Yes, you know, people trust the church so much that they believe in most of the things that they do, and they don't query much because most of the rural communities, sometimes they query a lot of things like a gift, especially something that is free, because of other, I don't know what I would say, but other suspicions of how safe is what we are receiving. So when it comes through the church, the community, they believe that this is safe and we can use it because it has come from the hands they trust. So it's very easy for us to work with the church because people believe in the church and they know that anything else that comes from the church is trusted. And also the leadership in the church are able to link well with the leadership to the grassroots. So it just makes our work smart and not questionable. Yeah.
Thanks, Euphrasia. Amanda, any comment from you on local church partnerships?
Sure. Yeah. So especially in Zambia, in a lot of Southern Africa, MCC has really deep, long relationships with the Anabaptist churches, and that can be really helpful when, say, in Malawi, when a disaster strikes, the cyclone comes through, MCC wants to respond quickly, and we need an institution that already has those existing relationships on the ground, like Euphrasia was talking about. So the church can, they're our partner, they're our bridge. They also, they advocate on behalf of MCC. So, MCC on its own, we can't just go into a refugee camp where we haven't worked. But if the Mennonite Brethren Church has been working there, has approval, has relationship with the officials, then they're able to support us in that. So I think, as Euphrasia said, their relationships, the trust that we have in the church, and just the grassroots network of the church makes them a really good partner for us.
So when you were describing Cyclone Idai and some of the other times of needing to respond, clearly there were greater needs than MCC's resources could meet. How do you make those tough decisions? Who receives canned meat? Who receives a relief kit?
Yeah, I think that is probably one of the hardest parts of this project, and you can see it in the faces of the church leaders, the pastors, and the project coordinators when they have to decide who gets the relief and who doesn't. But as MCC, we abide by the core humanitarian standards. So we try to really make our relief not based on relationship, not based on other things, but really based on need and vulnerability. So we work with our partners to make a matrix. It's often, orphans, child-headed households, women, single mothers, and then it goes down from there, people who are maybe older, people who are disabled. It's definitely a growing edge with our partners, but it's something that we really try to stress is giving the need based on vulnerability.
And you might imagine that a question going with that is, does someone need to be a member of the church that you're partnering with in order to be a beneficiary?
Yeah,
Euphrasia,
that's a
maybe you.
fabulous question. And the answer is no. But Euphrasia, I'll let you. It's a strong no.
No, the church is just a passage to the community, but the beneficiaries are all that are in need in that particular community. So to select the beneficiaries, the church also work with community leaders to select the vulnerable within that particular community. So the church is literally the recipient and the distribution point so that we easily manage these things. Like Amanda mentioned that the church has a structure. So we are really taking advantage of the presence of this well-organized structure to reach to everyone else in that particular community.
Now, in a way, you've spoken to this, but I wonder if you could just say a bit more about what difference does it make if, let's say, Amanda, you are the distributor or the local BIC church is doing the distribution? How does that change I'm going to say, how does that change the power dynamics of this relationship? Because I think, MCC has wrestled with this over the years, and I'd love to hear from either or both of you about that.
Euphrasia, I'll let you go first if you have thoughts on this.
I hope I got the question right. Would you just repeat it, Laura? Sorry, Ricky.
Yeah, no, just
what was the question again?
What is different, Euphrasia, about having the local church distribute the items rather than MCC distribute the items? What's the difference? Why would it be important that the church be the distributor?
It is important because we want to show the unity that we have. We are the minority in this community, and the church are the majority. So when you hand over the items, and then they take up the process, and of course, sometimes we participate, we are with them, like you saw in Amanda's video. She was present to show our solidarity and that we need to stand together. So the partnership comes in when they see both of us together than MCC being in the background and then they just see the partner alone. Sometimes there are a lot of questions that are unanswered, and our presence would always clear those unanswered questions.
Very helpful. Thank you. Well, we are within a few minutes of the top of the hour, and we want to respect the time of our presenters. Thank you again, Euphrasia, Amanda, and John, from the really different parts of the globe that you represent today. One of the benefits of doing things like this is as long as we can manage time zones, we can talk to each other from literally around the world. Just like you, our people that have joined us are in many time zones. I want to say a thank you again to each of you, not only for taking this time to be with us now, but for your ongoing engagement with MCC. However you help to share God's love and compassion, we are deeply grateful. We couldn't do this work without you. And you might know that this is MCC Centennial Year 2020. It's been a little different year than we imagined. And there were lots of celebrations that either didn't happen or are happening a little differently. One of those is on the 21st of November, and I think the announcement for that has been on your screen a time or so. We invite you, if you don't have that link, go to our website and click on the link for Saturday evening. It's later in some time zones, earlier in others, but basically Saturday evening, the 21st of November, for a virtual celebration coming out of the MCCs in Canada, but very much connected to our international program as well as our local work. A celebration of 100 years of relief, development, and peace in the name of Christ. So we hope you can join us for that as well. Thank you again for all your participation today. And we also say thanks be to God.